I want to share a story. My wife was making dinner, and my 9-year-old daughter insisted on having an apple right now. Since it was almost dinner time, we told her she could have it with the meal. She didn't like it, but she gave in. At dinner, we sliced the apple for her, but she felt it was too much food. So we all took a couple slices of her apple so she could finish the rest. After she ate her chili, she said she was still hungry. Well, we told her to get more chili, but she refused. After a couple of minutes, she insisted she was tired and eventually laid on the hard floor by her chair. Then she slowly tried to sneak her way into the kitchen to get other food. When I tried to get her back to the table, the room exploded. It was a total out of control meltdown. I took her to her room to calm down, but she had completely lost control of herself. For what felt like an eternity, I had to stay in that room, blocking the door while she screamed, kicked, and said the meanest, most hurtful things that she could think of. Logic was useless. Rationale out the window. When she finally exhausted herself, I was able to redirect her, and she was mostly calm. And even though I tried to teach her about what happened, there were no lessons learned and nothing understood. I just held her, I hugged her, and I told her I loved her. There I sat on a bedroom floor with my daughter curled up in my lap, wondering how a simple sliced apple turned into an all-out war zone. Welcome to my family. My wife and I have a beautiful family that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. We have 3 children that we adopted through foster care. They are sweet, beautiful souls, but come with deep, complex behavioral challenges. Before we adopted, we thought we were prepared. But the truth is, most parenting advice is built for what I would call standard challenges. You know, the kind that we experienced growing up. But when you are raising children from a traumatic background, traditional playbooks don't just fail. They can make you feel like an absolute failure as a parent. So many times, we've wanted to pull our hair out at the craziness and absurdity that happens in our home. My kids yell, and sometimes I catch myself yelling right back. In those moments, I become the parent I never wanted to be. And afterward, the guilt is almost crushing. We see our kids show ever-increasing levels of meanness and straight-up defiance, even to the simplest of instructions, like, please come back to the table. They throw things, they've broken furniture, they've destroyed bedrooms, they've run away, they've hit teachers, they've screamed things that no child should ever know how to say. We try parenting styles and techniques, attend workshops and trainings, we try new medications, we change dosages, we stop medications, all to help our kids and to try to understand their needs better. We attend a support group for parents like us, where we can all share the crap we have to go through sometimes. We commiserate in the helplessness and hopelessness that comes when nothing seems to work. More than anything, we wanted our children to be understood. This video is meant for parents of children with difficult behaviors. Parents who are trying to advocate for their kids, but are facing uphill battles everywhere they turn. Most parents never feel fully prepared to handle what comes with their kids. I get that. And that's regardless of how typical or different the kids can be. We all do our best, and things usually turn out all right for most kids, I would say, because the challenges they bring are usually not that different than how the parents were raised. But that is just not the case when it comes to children from traumatic backgrounds. Hunger, neglect, abuse, drugs, alcohol, exposure, instability, mental or physical disabilities, homelessness, trauma, the list can go on and on. My own precious children were exposed to and experienced many of these things. Neither my wife nor I grew up that way, so we don't know what to do with this. These challenges are severe and reach to the core of how our children view, experience, and face this world. From the time that they were little and we started to see the first signs of things that we didn't quite understand, we sought professional help. Over the years, we have had many wonderful professionals in our lives help us diagnose, treat, care, understand our children and their needs. Doctors, therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, educators, support groups, and more have all played a part, and I am truly grateful to have access to so many wonderful people who have dedicated their lives and professions to helping children like mine. In an ideal world, clinicians would have all the information they need about the child. Parents would accurately and fully paint the picture of their child's home and school life. The clinician would fully understand the child's traumatic background and current interests. Educators would work hand in hand with clinicians and parents and provide all the resources that the child needs. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. I had a hard time saying all that without laughing. Let's face it, this is just not the case. Not even close. For example, just recently at my daughter's after-school therapy, the workers told me that they had to physically restrain her because she was hitting and kicking one of the workers. She eventually calmed down and admitted that it all started because she thinks she was just hungry. But clinicians can't always see those hidden triggers, and children can rarely explain why they do what they do. In fact, my kids usually act completely different when they are around someone they don't really know, or in a room where they are surrounded by fun toys, pictures, and books. My kids don't throw their tantrums or have their meltdowns in these environments. Kids don't usually pee their pants or say their harshest words in this setting. They don't typically try to hit and punch and kick their way out of the room. They don't typically steal things that aren't theirs, in part because they are under careful observation. True story, all of that. I don't mean to find fault with clinicians who start visits this way, but so many start the appointment with a question like, "So, how are things going?" That is the biggest loaded question known to the mental health world. A parent walks into an office after a morning of fighting with their children over whether or not the fruit chunks in their yogurt should be eaten, whether they are allowed to bring this or that to school, the meltdown over being confronted about stealing something from their sibling for the umpteenth time, or being told that they are an effing B because they aren't being given the thing that they saw at the store the other day. That parent hears that question and their mind flashes through the wreckage of the last 4 hours. They think to themselves, if I tell you the truth, will you judge me? Where do I even begin? But out of sheer exhaustion, they just smile, shrug, and say, okay, I guess. And just like that, the real story is lost, especially if the clinician can't pull it out. How's a clinician supposed to treat a child based on the parent's response? Is the parent explaining everything accurately to the clinician so that they have the full picture of what is happening at home? Does the clinician even have enough information to make an accurate assessment and treatment plan? Let's look at the parent again. It could be that this parent actually had an uncharacteristically easy time with their child that morning, maybe even for the last several days. That parent hears that question, remembers the unusually easy morning, and answers, pretty good. Up until yesterday or a week ago, things were horrible, but due to the recent pleasantness, the parent may unintentionally paint a rosier picture of their home life. In either case, the parent is working from the recency effect. More weight is given to whatever the recent memories are. It's just human nature. Let's be honest. Parents have their own issues, their own insecurities, challenges. They have hopes, dreams, responsibilities, and relationships. What is this parent going through themselves? Are they a single parent? A grandparent? A foster parent? An aunt? An uncle? A friend? Are things so hard that often they're just trying to get through the day? Are they worried about their job, their finances, marital problems, challenges with extended family? Do they have their own trauma that they're working through? In other words, are their own issues influencing how they respond to the clinician or their children for that matter? I am not saying the clinician is doing something wrong. I'm not. I have tremendous respect for these people. I am not saying the parent is doing something wrong. I'm not. I am saying that there are so many external factors and variables that help to explain why medications, treatment plans, and IEPs sometimes fall short of what they could be if they were based on the right information. I truly believe that clinicians want to do their best and help the patients they serve. I believe they have gone through training and study that has put them in a position to help. However, there is a fundamental flaw in the fabric of the clinical mental health environment. It relies on what can be explained or observed in a short visit in an office setting, or sometimes at home. There is a gap between this and what real life actually looks like. We are all trying to do our best to minimize that gap, but it is still there. While the ideal scenario will likely never be possible, we need to work on closing that gap. We need to do a better job of painting that picture of home life or school life. But how do we close that gap? My wife and I realized something. We weren't looking for another parenting trick. We weren't looking for another diagnosis. More than anything, we wanted our children to be understood. So we started keeping a record of what life actually looked like at home. Since late December 2025, my wife and I started doing something different. We began keeping detailed logs of our kids' behaviors in an app that we created called AviorTrack. Now I know what you're thinking. I don't want to spend all this extra time and do all that. I'm already full. I've already got a ton on my plate already. I am too exhausted to write a novel every time my kid has a meltdown. Frankly, I couldn't agree more, because those were my first thoughts. We built this app with that exact stress in mind. And that's why this one is so different than any other apps, any other behavior tracking apps that you'll find out there. With our app, a log can be done in as little as 3 clicks if you wanted. The app lets you record the what, the who, the when, the triggers, and the severity in seconds, right in the middle of the chaos or later when you have a chance to breathe. Adding a few optional notes even helps to paint the picture that much more. My wife and I have over 300 entries. The app charts my kids and the behaviors so that we can see what those behaviors look like over time. We get to see the frequency of the behaviors. We get to see when they occur and if the severity is changing over time. You can even include point-in-time events like when you changed the medication, or maybe there was a death in the family, or you moved to a new home, or a significant bullying event at school. Before the visit with the therapist or psychiatrist, we send a PDF report that the app generates that has the charts, the tables, and the detailed entries. And we send that to the clinician. Walking into a clinician's office with notes and questions is a great start. Walking into that office with logs of behaviors taken over the last number of months is significantly better. Clinicians want to look for patterns, outliers, and other data points. They want to see trends. They want to see what has been working and what hasn't. The first time that we sent a PDF report was to our daughter's therapist, and it was about 4 hours before the visit. At this point, we had a couple months of data. The therapist made comments like, "Yeah, I was reading in the report you sent me that your daughter has been ... or I remember reading that in the report, and it seems to me that ... We have since been sending her the latest reports, so she always has the latest information of what's happening at home and what those trends look like. Another time was with our kid's psychiatrist. Now, if you don't have experience getting appointments with psychiatrists, just believe me, it can be difficult. They're often booked out months in advance, and then they only give you a 30-minute appointment. We sent the psychiatrist the latest PDF report the day before the visit. At this point, we had several months of data. Our psychiatrist read the report the night before. Before we ever walked in, she already knew the behaviors and the details. If you've ever waited 6 months for a psychiatrist appointment, only to get a rushed 30-minute slot, you know how precious every second is. We spent 0 minutes trying to explain and reconstruct the last 3 months in our home. Instead, we got 30 minutes collaborating on a real proactive treatment plan for our daughter. It felt like someone truly understood what life was like inside of our home. The psychiatrist has even since asked us to keep sending her reports as well. Another time we used the report was at our kids' IEP meeting. If you don't know, IEP stands for Individualized Education Plan, and those are set up for kids with extra needs. We knew that the school didn't quite fully understand what we were experiencing at home and what our child was going through. So we brought this report in. It finally helped point to show the educators the full picture of what was going on so that they could better support our child in their classroom. This is my favorite one. Another time was for an appointment that we've been waiting years to have done. It's called a neuropsych. Now, for those who don't know what this is, I'll let you know. If you look it up, according to Yale Medicine, it says having a neuropsych or a neuropsychological evaluation means undergoing a comprehensive checkup for your brain. It involves a series of structured tests and interviews with a specialist to measure how your brain functions in areas like memory, attention, problem solving, motor skills, and language. These are sometimes required in order to get certain diagnoses that in turn affect the types of treatments and programs that our kids are eligible for. In our case, the testing took several hours one morning in a hospital setting. They told us they would have the full report in a week. During that week, while I wish I could say that we sent the report in advance, we forgot. We're human. So the day before we went back, we sent the report in. And then we went back in to hear their findings. The clinician decided to review the notes that they had already prepared for us. But then something incredible happened. They said that they actually wanted to take more time to review our report and revisit the diagnoses based on our data. Our tracking literally influenced the clinical diagnosis for our child. It gave the specialists the missing pieces of the puzzle that they could never have gotten in a single morning in a hospital room. Having a record has helped in other ways too. Let me tell you another story. There was a time when one of my kids threw a particularly extreme outburst. She had just been dropped off after school by her van. We needed to take her to her after-school therapy group, but she utterly refused because she wasn't getting her way. We were able to get her into the car and drive down the street a little ways, but she was refusing to get her seatbelt on and was thrashing about. 9 years old, by the way. She was so far gone and out of control that she was beyond reasoning with. We had to stop the car and restrain her. My wife and I, we were both in the car, restraining her to keep her from hurting herself, us, or the vehicle. We tried to open a window because it was getting so hot in there, but this just made her scream for someone to come save her from these effing bees. As she screamed for someone to save her from us, I was scared the police would actually show up, since several neighbors had actually gone by during all this. It is a nightmare that some foster and adoptive parents live with every day. But in the back of my mind, I knew I had a shield. I knew I had a precise, objective, and time-stamped history of these behaviors in AviorTrack. And that all her therapists and doctors already had copies. I wasn't a parent trying to defend myself in a crisis. I had an entire clinical team who could vouch for the reality of our lives. There's also been a surprising benefit from tracking these behaviors, one that I never counted on. When things seem to be at their worst, and we just feel so angry or feel so helpless or hopeless, logging that entry had actually brought a small amount of relief, a small amount of control. Because in that small way, I at least know that while the situation at hand may be horrific, I am able at least to do something that will help in the long run. didn't start tracking behaviors because we loved data. We didn't build this app so that we can make a lot of money. We did it because we desperately wanted our children to be understood. And what we discovered is that when we closed that gap between our home life and the clinician's office, everything changed. By tracking, you aren't just logging difficult days, you are giving your child a voice. You're helping the people around them finally understand what they are experiencing. Because every child deserves to be understood. You are empowering your clinical team with the real truth of your daily life. And you are taking back that power as an advocate. You don't have to navigate this tunnel alone. You don't have to rely on guesswork. We built AviorTrack to be a shield and a guide and a source of truth for families just like ours. Let's bridge the gap. Let's do it together. We built this app because my wife and I were drowning, and we desperately needed a lifeline. It's helped our sanity, it helps protect our family, and most importantly, it finally gave our children the voice they deserved. If you are sitting on your kitchen floor right now, feeling like you're failing, please know you aren't. You are just parenting without all the right tools. If you want to try tracking for your family, you can download AviorTrack in the App Store or head to our website to learn more. You don't have to navigate this dark tunnel alone anymore. Let's bridge this gap together.